Well, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for attending installment of free CLE Fridays in 2024. We offer these as a convenient way for you all to get some CLE credits. We try to focus on ethics credits. And that's what we're going to do today. We're going to talk about the impact of AI, artificial intelligence, and more specifically, I guess, ChatGPT or generative AI, to be more to provide a broader explanation on lawyers and related ethical issues. A lot has changed with AI, and we're going to talk about that in just a minute. My name is Matt Beier. Also joining me is Matt Beier, as he appears on the screen. That's Brian Anderson. We were having a little bit of technical difficulty, so we just managed to have him join as a second me. I'm flattered, but he,
Well, Matt is very disappointed that I'm the AI image of him, and that's not what he thought he looked like. Much worse version of
right.
Matt.
Well, but nonetheless, I'm glad that you're here, Brian. Brian is our Director of Claims, and he is going to talk about, thankfully, the small number, if any number, of claims that are related to AI that WILMIC has seen. But we did we have exposure every day, as I'm sure all of you do, to issues surrounding artificial intelligence and how that's going to impact the practice of law. Um, but
Yeah,
so
it's
for
one,
those of you,
and
oh, go ahead, Brian.
I was going to say, man, that obviously this is new, and so when I think like our risk management legal malpractice outline hasn't developed case law under this chapter necessarily, although we'll have stories, man, I know in the outline of other jurisdictions, but it's interesting. It's one of those. I mean, I guess just a brief commentary. I'm thinking that it seems scary and all this excitement about AI, but then again, then maybe it's not more than what we always have. That is the duty on lawyers to reasonably investigate a claim, prosecute a claim, research. Are we really thinking? Is this anything different than when an associate makes a mistake? But that's something we can talk, or you make the error because you didn't check CCAP or whatever the case might be. But that being said, it can't be ignored, and I'm glad we're trying to at least stay relevant in the new developments.
Yeah, exactly right, and that's a good intro to the topic, Brian. And just a couple of housekeeping issues before we jump into those topics that Brian mentioned. This has been applied for, and I believe we have obtained one CLE credit approval from the Board of Bar Examiners. You never know with those guys over there. They so in any event, this one has been approved. It is a program that we have offered in the past. We do have updates though, and so we'll get to many of those. For those of you who attended the last AI session that we did that with Stacy Rosenzweig, who is an ethics guru. I think she wouldn't mind me calling her that, but she's also very attuned to technology and the sort of impacts that AI has. In our last session that she and I did, we even did a real time use of Chat GPT, and we created an excellent recipe for beef stew. But we did it uh, to a lyrical rock ballad from the 1980s, and it was called "Steamy Beef Stew," and it was a great song. But in any event, that's sort of the absurd side or the fun side or whatever you might want to call it, part of generative AI, and it has become more serious and more useful, or equally useful, just in different ways in many different professions and across many different industries. Um, so, with that, I do want to talk about what you want to talk about. And so I do have the chat box open. And that doesn't mean that I'll see every single message that comes in immediately when it's posted, but I will try to get to them. And if there are questions burning for you that you want to talk about, please post those there, and we'll do our best to cover that topic, whatever it is, and give you at least whatever insight we can offer. Okay. So What is AI? You have in your materials there, and I hope everybody can see it. Our outline. I give a couple of different definitions. One comes from IBM, which has been around forever. And in its simplest form, AI is a field which combines computer science and robust data sets to enable problem solving. That sounds like something that was taken directly from AI. I think the third definition is probably the most useful, and that is we're trying to teach machines how to be more human, and how to interact on a level that makes more sense to more people. Um, and so by way of using prompts and by way of using natural dialogue, when I was going through law school, Westlaw's natural language search was the big thing, where it allowed not a Boolean type search where you had to put in all kinds of symbols before your search terms, but where you could just type a regular sentence, a conversational sentence, a natural language sentence, and get a response in research. That's really what's at the core of artificial intelligence generally. It forces technology to help humans in whatever task is at hand. We're already using it. There's, the best example I think I can offer is when you're using, Amazon. I think most of us are familiar with Amazon or really doing any online shopping. And you start to add things to your cart, or you spend a little too much time on those Nike shoes. It will inevitably, whatever software is operating behind the shopping platform will offer suggestions. You might also like this. And that's an attempt at AI, helping humans, accomplish what they're trying to accomplish. So Chat GPT has really been, and this is again, Chat GPT is one of those products that's available under generative AI. And that's really where a lot of the focus has been in the AI realm, as it pertains to new legal tech or legal technology, and how it's going to affect what we do. When you ask ChatGPT to describe itself in two sentences, it comes up with ChatGPT and is an advanced AI language model designed to generate human-like text, assist with tasks, answer questions, and engage in conversations across a wide range of topics. It leverages deep learning techniques to understand context and provide meaningful context-aware responses. That sounds like everything that I've ever gotten out of my use of Chat GPT. It's got that tone, that tenor, that overly descriptive at times sort of response, because it is not yet human. I don't think people would. Maybe they would. I don't. When I introduced myself and Brian introduced himself, it was not overly technical. And it really isn't how human beings talk to each other when they want to understand each other, but it's getting there, and it's really good. So there are many different things that you can do with these what are called large language models. Those that use the entire internet are what we would refer to as open-ended. And those are the ones that, let's maybe take a pause if you're going to use that, especially if you're using that in a legal practice. And then there are proprietary sources where you decide, and those are what we would refer to as closed-ended, where you decide what information is used as the pool of information that AI will drill down behind and come up with good answers for you. And that can be as limited as, the last 10 briefs that you wrote as a lawyer on a particular topic, or it can be as broad as, a 50 lawyer firm, having a data bank or a database of all of their briefs that they've ever written, as far back as they can remember. It can also include some proprietary models that include what we're all familiar with, LexisNexis and Westlaw and those sorts of things, so that you actually get some case law and some statutory authority attached to your answers. We'll talk more about that more specifically in just a little bit. But if you've not yet dipped your toes in this, I would encourage you to do so. And you can start very small. And we have some examples there of, the New York Times provides the chatbot prompts to try. You can write a poem, you can solve a math problem, and yeah, you could even write a legal brief. But we'll talk about that in a little bit. Brian, I'm just interested, besides generating artificial intelligence photos of me, have you used ChatGPT in any way, shape, or form, or are you still learning too? And where do you fall in all of that?
Yeah, I mean, I'm either a good or bad person to add to the panel because I have not used it much. And we did have experience. We went to a conference for legal malpractice carriers, and that was about the most exposure I had to it recently. And that's why I say that I think it's a tool. I'm not sure how to gauge this from a risk management standpoint. Um, other other than I keep going back, Matt, to whether this changes anything at all for attorneys, other than you have to do all things reasonably necessary to represent your client in the most efficient way possible. I think is the general goal of an attorney. And so this is a tool. I believe that I don't know that it's reasonable going forward to say, and even though notwithstanding what I just said about how my lack of use, but if this isn't a tool in your toolbox, then are you doing a service to your client? Because I'm not saying you can turn it over to AI and say, well, AI is going to represent you. I'm just going to sit here in my chair. But I think you have to use all means necessary. And I just don't think a guy like me would be a valid defense to say, well, I'm not really using the technology that's available. I'm an old school guy. That's fine and good, but that may not be a correct answer if there's something missed that could have, or you charge someone 10 times what they could have been charged had you done just a little research or used chat gpt to advance the cause. That's the concern I see going forward, Matt, on from a legal malpractice risk standpoint and just from a lawyer's risk standpoint.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. I think that's where this is headed. So that if you're one of those who's going to bury his or her head in the sand, and just avoid this altogether, well, this is probably going to go past you pretty fast.
Yeah.
One of the title you mentioned, so WILMIC is part of an organization called NABRICA, National Association of Bar-related Insurance Companies, folks kind of like us from various states and parts of Canada. And we do what WILMIC does on a smaller scale, just in Wisconsin. We go and we share experiences, and there is, as there is everywhere, I think, there was a lot of buzz about AI. And what I really liked about this particular conference was that one of the very first programs was titled "There's no slowing down and there's no going back,"
Right.
and I think that's very appropriate when trying to establish some context around AI and artificial intelligence, because there really isn't. It's one of those trains that you just can't stop. Um, and I think that's where Brian is foreshadowing, I think, where more of the conversation is going to be. And I think that comes from not just its usefulness. I think the whole idea is in use of AI is to make lawyers more efficient. For the solo and small firm, I think that's a leveler of the playing field, and makes you in that capacity just as powerful as the big firms because you have the access to the same technology. So I really do think it's in how you use it, and recognize that just because you're using it or relying on it for part of your practice, that does not supplant your responsibilities and your professional obligations and responsibilities to your client and to the bar, the practice.
Yeah,
None of those things
and
go away.
well, I was going to say too, Matt, and to review the work that's being generated. If you're, I guess I'm still now. I'm going to sound like a broken record, but whether you or your associate or you relied on outside counsel to help you prepare a brief, and then there's all kinds of mistakes in it. This is old times now, I'm talking. You're not getting out of the responsibility. If you are the lawyer that's on the case for that client, you're responsible for the work. And you can't, an excuse wouldn't be, well, I thought they would do a good job researching. So just like the AI, the same thing. You can't, that's not going to be a defense to say, well, I relied on ChatGPT and there was an error. I didn't see it because you're still responsible for the work. So, I think it's a great tool. We're going to talk about it more. I'm jumping ahead a little bit again, but it's a great tool, although it doesn't, I guess, maybe the same thing you just said. The lawyer is ultimately responsible for the work, though. So if it helps you on a shortcut, great, but don't ever think that that's not something you need to double check and review. And maybe it's just a starting point. So I do think it's an important tool to have in your toolbox as a lawyer to help you get to the final product, of which you are the one that's going to put that together, not ChatGPT.
Exactly. And so philosophically, we have these two approaches where, the question, will Chat GPT replace lawyers? And, you can take the dark view of Stephen Hawking, and, attach a sort of Terminator, Arnold Schwarzenegger kind of approach to it, where it's just going to take off on its own. We're not going to be able to control it. And the development of full artificial intelligence could spell the end of the human race. Well, okay. I don't, maybe that's true. But I think in the meantime, we ought to try and figure out how to use it, learn more about it, and really adopt a more practical approach to it, which is the one that Chris Shattuck, if you know him, he was the former director of the 411 program at the state bar. And what he described it as is a potential milestone, and really to understand it, you gotta use it, and you gotta try it for yourself. And like Brian suggests, that doesn't mean that you have created a finished product just because it sounds good. A lot of people sound good, especially in this political environment we're in. People say and they look for sound bites that may or may not be true, but they sound good in the immediate time frame that they're saying them. And that's kind of what Chat GPT is. Okay, that sounds great, but what is my understanding of the law? What research do I have to do to verify these things? Is this citation an actual citation, or is it a hallucination? And I'll talk about that in a minute. But again, the point is, as a lawyer, you have to be aware of what technology is out there, not just to be able to use it, but also to recognize when it's being used, and when to understand, oh, geez, I ought to challenge that because that's not right. That's not my understanding of it. And let's take a look at that case, that was cited, and all those things that you do now as a lawyer when you get a response brief from opposing counsel. What do you do with it? Well, you try to pick it up. You immediately start to pick it apart, identify weaknesses, identify misstated arguments, identify updated case law that refutes the point made or the argument made by opposing counsel. None of that changes, and I think once you have a better idea about how you can use AI to help you in that effort, you're going to be a better lawyer for it.
Yeah, Matt, I don't love the first comment by Stephen Hawking, who's way more intelligent than you and I put times 10. But because only from the legal malpractice claim standpoint, where I've sat for the last 20 plus years, is there's been legal research around for years, obviously forever. I mean, Westlaw, Lexis, et cetera. But the claims so often are the communication breakdown with the client. So it's not the product that's causing the problem. There might be you as the lawyer might have put together a very nice brief that has no errors in it. And then there was a misunderstanding about, well, I didn't want to settle, or I didn't want to file the appeal, or I did want to appeal. So there's the piece that's always still going to be there is this communication, the human side of the claims that we see. There are errors, yes, often, but sometimes no. It's not an error. It's a misunderstanding or miscommunication. with the client. So that piece is going to remain. And that's why humans have a different exposure and a different way of communicating than machines do. And that won't change, in my view.
Yeah, I agree. So I don't think, this is something that is going to replace lawyers, and it shouldn't, and really it can't. And so again, I say that only because I want to encourage lawyers to approach this with some confidence, that it isn't going to change your job at being a lawyer. It's meant to be used to make it easier. Um, at this conference, Brian and I had the opportunity to observe some of the products that are now out there. We've had the well. Let me jump ahead here, and I'll talk about what went wrong, because really the new products that are out there are a response to a couple of the glaring and kind of frightening errors that scared everybody into action. So there was an attorney in New York, and it just so happened that see if I can find it here. Um, well, I'm not going to find it immediately, but I will. Anyways, let me just give you from memory first. His name was Schwartz, Attorney Schwartz, um, presented a brief to the court, and opposing counsel did what opposing counsel is supposed to do, and took a look at the arguments made and the cases cited in support of those arguments. As it turned out, one of the one or more of the cases were not actual cases. There was a complete citation, but it was not one that actually existed, or at least not in the way in which it was cited. And so opposing counsel brought this to the attention of the court. The court asked Attorney Schwartz, what's going on here? Is this an actual case? Well, Attorney Schwartz sort of doubled down on his use of Chat GPT and asked Chat GPT, is this a real case? And went back and said, no, no, no. I asked, if this was a real case, and it said yes. Not a reliable source to authenticate, anything. And so you still got to do. If Stacy Rosenzweig were here, she would say, this is where it begins to delve into the area of misrepresentation and candor toward the tribunal, and some of those ethical rules that we'll begin to talk about. But the response was quite swift to that very situation. And I should add, as a side note, there was a lot of sort of doom and gloom, the Stephen Hawking approach to this conference in Nebrico that talked about all the things that could go wrong with AI. And when it came time for the group, which was maybe 19 Nebrico companies, like ours, we're actually one of the smaller ones, to share their experience with claims, one person raised their hand, and it happened to be the presenter. And it was a case or a claim that was very, very similar to the one that I just described about the attorney in New York. And so that's the good news, that lawyers are either too afraid to be using this on a regular basis, or they have become smarter very quickly about how to use it to avoid any sort of claims. And that's the exciting piece to me, is some of these new products that are coming out. And like I said, we had some real time comments and real-time demonstrations of some of these. And I mentioned a couple of them in your materials. One of those it was Spellbook, and it uses the technology behind Chat GPT, in this case, the next version, GPT-4, to review and suggest language for contracts and legal documents right in Microsoft Word. It was fascinating. There was on the screen, as it was being shared, there was a complete contract, and they took one provision of the contract, highlighted it, and then prompt over in the right-hand column, there was a prompt screen, and they prompted Spellbook to make this provision mutual and make it more beneficial at the same time, make it more beneficial to client X, my client. And it proposed new language immediately on the spot. Now, whether or not that lawyer chose to use that language is one thing, but it gets you, off of that blank space or off of that writer's block, or maybe comes up with something that is more usable, more advantageous to your client, and it does so in milliseconds. It was really interesting. Now, if you don't know Spellbook, or if you're looking for something that maybe you're already using, maybe you already have Lexis and adding AI and its product called Protege, that maybe that is something that is already available to you, and you just need to learn how to use. I'm pretty sure that most folks at Lexis would be ready, willing, and able, to help walk you through how exactly their product is going to work and how it's better for you as a lawyer, and how it's better compared to their competitors. That's just what they do. Thomson Reuters, same thing. Their product is called Co-Counsel, and I think those two products for sure are more geared toward providing succinct answers, along with case citations, knowing how lawyers speak, or at least how lawyers need to communicate when they're in a courtroom setting, or writing briefs, or even when they're drafting contracts and justifying the change or a new provision to their clients. Here's the new provision. Here's why you got to do it. Here's the case that says, this is new law. This is something that's advantageous to your client, and you need to do it. So I was fascinated by that. I thought that was really what most of the questions asked of us when we offer presentations like this entail. It's like, well, how do I use it? What do I do? And I think that the response, both in the form of guidance, Aviva Kaiser and Chris Shattuck wrote excellent articles about how to use it, and what the ethical considerations are, but then also the industry response by way of products that are easier to use, and products that are more effective and safer, is really exciting. So I don't know if you had the same impression, Brian, but I think that there are going to be more options, and they're going to be options that are easier for lawyers to use in the very near future.
No, I totally agree. I don't know. Have there been any comments on the chat yet, Matt? I can't see it if there were.
I don't have any just yet. I do.
Only thing I was curious about was if the audience has any, if anyone's willing to share anonymously, but
Oh,
or out loud, but how they in their office are using some of the tools we've talked about so far. If not, we can move forward as with the outline. But I would love to hear how the practice side of the equation is working in real time from the practitioners that might be watching this.
so I do have some initial. I was in the wrong box. I had the chat box open, and now I see that there's a Q&A session that's more useful.
Oh, good.
Yes. So folks who are looking for the material, yeah, some of this is housekeeping, but let me just get through these. Folks who are looking for materials, there are materials that are in the form of a link that was emailed to you this morning. So if you're here, you should have gotten that email, and look for that in the email that was sent to you. And it looks like some folks are figuring that out on the way. We do have one comment that says it's a blanket warning. I have found that ChatGPT regularly cites non-existent cases with random volume and page. Don't trust those sites. Absolutely agree. In fact, I would encourage the use of open-ended ChatGPT, be limited to things like correspondence, things like beginning any sort of marketing materials, things like that. Because understand that ChatGPT on the internet is using the internet. It's a different form of Google, rather than. And you may notice now that when you actually do a Google search, you get the first prompted response, which is an A better. They're actually showing links to various documents and writings and information that's out there, where it put together its sentence, its conversational tone sentence for you. But there's still, I absolutely agree with that comment. It is something that will cite non-existent cases and should not be used that way. Um, we have a couple of other comments here, and I will get to them. And I appreciate a lot of these. And let's see here. I only use it for letters and emails if I have a writing block, but I have never used it for legal research. Right in line with my comment. And so I think that is something that is important to remember. Which tool are you using, and should you be using it for the purpose you intend? So keep that in mind. One more question. Can you speak on the topic of confidentiality with use of tools like Spellbook when submitting all or a portion of a contract? This is the really cool thing about these products. When they are closed-ended like this, you do have the ability to customize the library in which you use or which you draw from to generate responses. That's what I meant earlier when I said that some of these new products are closed-ended. Okay, so when Lexis and or Thomson Reuters offers you their product, it's their proprietary database. All of the cases that they've published in, from, today back to whenever. That's what they're drawing from. So they're drawing from more sources that are trusted by lawyers than ChatGPT draws from the internet. There's a ton of misinformation out there. ChatGPT's ability to hallucinate is a little frightening. It's not really a hallucination, it's a lie. And it's just making something up because it sounds good, because it sounds authoritative, because it was drawn from some Yahoo who, made up some argument and attempted to make up some cases. You don't know where it comes from. And that's the scary part about ChatGPT. But a lot has happened, since the first time we started talking about ChatGPT and what is available now. And that's why I'm getting to, the idea of Spellbook. So Spellbook and, LexisNexis or Lexis AI, I think has more of a checkbox availability. So if you want to stick to particular jurisdictions, which might be very valuable, that's something that's going to be, I think, very useful to you. Spellbook is one of those that, again, does the same thing, but also keeps it closed so that whatever work that you do draws from whatever you want it to draw from. And won't necessarily, it'll still use large language, but that's just a dictionary, right? And that's just vocabulary. One of the other comments, and I have to always bring in, the Chevy Chase's quote when he was playing Gerald Ford on Saturday Night Live. He was asked a question that had a lot of numbers in it. And his response is, well, I was aware there'd be no math in his debate. But that's how you need to think about AI. It really is math. It's doing a million calculations behind the scenes about what it thinks you want the response to be, which when you think of it, that's sometimes how we talk to each other. When we're not actively listening, we're making the mistake of thinking of what we're going to say next. And so that's a talent of communication that is a little bit lost with artificial intelligence, and that's the human element that Brian was hitting on when he said you still can't replace humans with AI, at least not yet. So let's get into some of the rules here, okay? To make sure that we do what we're supposed to be doing to get you your credits. Competence, Supreme Court Rule 20:1.1. More and more, traditionally WILMIC has approached this from the standpoint of don't dabble. Don't get involved in things that you don't understand as it comes to practice areas. Well, that's, equally important these days is to understand what your duties and responsibilities are as they relate to technology, because it's constantly changing and constantly becoming more and more onerous on lawyers. And the ABA comment 8 in your materials that you have to maintain the requisite knowledge and skill that you should, including the benefits and risks associated with relevant technology. Another reason why I think technology is going to become more and more important is because clients are going to ask for it. And this is where uh, we have a comment in the Q&A that uh, a sad fact of life is that lawyers always add cost, but do not always add value for clients. And replacing lawyers may be that clients use AI as a DIY and do it yourself and don't even go to lawyers. Um, I think the first one is a mistake, if clients do that, but sophisticated clients, but particularly business clients, who use different parts of AI, not just generative AI, are going to demand it, and they're going to require that the law firms that they hire actually use it because they know of its benefits. And the expectation, I think, there is that, use it to be more efficient, but I still want the benefit of your knowledge, skills, and abilities as a lawyer. So I think all of that means to say, and again, Brian alluded to this at the beginning. I think that from a legal malpractice standpoint, the duty of care owed to the client is going to change. I think, rather than talking about all of the pitfalls well, in addition to talking about all of the pitfalls and the dangers of using things like Chat GPT, I think part of the conversation is necessarily going to have to be, um, do you fall short of the standard of care when you don't use AI? When you don't use it, fine if you want to write the brief that takes you 10 hours to research and draft from whole cloth. But when the client is expecting that to take much less time because the other firm down the street, is doing it in much less time. And oh, by the way, it knew about that case that came out 2 days ago and you didn't. That's where I think that kind of mistake or that act, error, or omission may come into play in the legal malpractice context. Is that kind of capture what you were trying to describe, Brian? Or is there more to it as far as using technology to come up with, the novel argument or, the rapidly updating case law, or what are your thoughts along those lines as to the duty of care?
Yeah, I don't think it would be a real stretch. The one case that comes to mind was several years ago where there were judgments all over CCAP against this debtor that the lawyer was blamed for not advising the client before entering into a contract with this debtor about the dire circumstances and the unlikelihood that this client or this debtor would ever be able to pay the client anything for the purchase of this property. And I just was moved it was at the trial when they said, "Did you check CCAP?" And our lawyer had to say no. How long would that have taken? Well, seconds. And how much would that have cost? Zero. I mean, so I just see that kind of deposition transcript in a case like this where you can say, "Oh, I don't use that." Well, they would go through that same question and answer that I just did, and it doesn't sound good. The second piece I think to be weary of as a lawyer is that the client may have done this before they come to see you, or they might do it during the course of the representation, use AI on their own to do some homework / diligence, or not, thinking they're saving themselves or trying. I don't know if they're trying to get you. I mean, some lawyer clients are that weird, or they're just trying to double check what you're doing. But it might be helpful, if nothing else, is to have that prepared in advance, what the client might be doing behind your back, so you can at least be ready for that answer to that, or explain why that's not relevant in this circumstance because you've done that same analysis. So that's where I see this. But I agree with you, Matt, that to ignore it and not make it a part of your practice, I don't think is realistic going forward. And including, unfortunately, a program like this, we're introducing it out there. Is it the standard of care? I've not seen it yet, but it's not going to be hard for an expert to say, "Why didn't you do this?" And if you had, again, quick, inexpensive, and maybe helpful to the client, those are all things that are good for the client and you in the representation.
Yeah, I completely agree, and I think that goes hand in hand with, are you competent? and what understanding. It doesn't mean that you have to be an expert, in artificial intelligence or computer programming or anything like that. It does mean that you need to be aware of what benefits and risks out there. Let's There is some additional guidance, and it's only come out, a couple of months ago, at the end of July, and that's uh, the formal ethics opinion from the American Bar Association, July 29th. It's formal opinion 512. Um, this isn't that different than the logic that we suggest for our insureds when they ask us the questions about dabbling. And that is, look, you either have to make yourself, you have to learn it. And if it's a new area of practice, you've got to learn that area of practice. You're smart, you're a lawyer, you can do that by studying. Or you can make yourself knowledgeable by associating yourself with somebody who can do all of those things, and learning from them. And I think that's the takeaway here is that either learn it yourself or find somebody that can teach you how to use it and use it well. I think that's invaluable. I do want to get to a couple of other comments. One is very in line with what I suggested, and that is that the use of AI is specifically Archie on Smokeball. I was not aware of that one, to help draft difficult letters. And this lawyer used it to help drafting a closing letter for a client that could no longer afford services. And that's a great use of it. You're not going to, cite a wrong case in that kind of a letter, but it is going to help you soften the language. It's going to help you, whatever you can think of to prompt AI or Chat GPT or Archie, is going to be the best benefit to you. So how can I gently, and this is what I'm suggesting, what the prompt would be. How can I gently inform a client who is no longer able to afford their bills, that I am no longer able to provide them with services? What you will get back, I think, will surprise you, because I think it will understand what you mean by gently. And I think that using something like Archie or in that way is a perfect example of how it can help you in your practice, because then you can go over and start studying or start verifying a brief or do the legal research that does require a little bit more attention. We have another question about, should there be a disclosure in attorney fee agreements that the lawyer/law firm will utilize AI? Is it an assumption or does it require client consent? Boy, I would sure use it in a fee agreement. I think it's a one, you may have that obligation under 20:1.4, which talks about communication. And I may have skipped over it. I think Aviva Kaiser would agree with me wholeheartedly that you do have responsibilities to your client at many different points in time of the representation to communicate with your client, and you have to disclose those things. And use of AI might be part of that. So yes, it may be part of your responsibilities in communicating with your client, but also I think if you use it right, I think it's a good marketing tool. I'm using it, client, because I think that it's beneficial to you. It will help save time, which means that you save money. I think there was some discussion at our Embrico conference about what sort of surcharges you could attach to that. I think 1.5, Brian, help me on fees. 20:1.5, I think, addresses fees. And the only guidance I would offer there is that, the fee at any point in time needs to be reasonable. And if part of your fee includes services or AI services, I think whatever amount you calculate as a surcharge for use of AI, whether you spread that among all your clients, which is probably a good way to do it, or it's specific to how much time you actually spend in that environment. That's as long as it's reasonable. I think it's going to pass muster under the rules of professional responsibility. Let's see if I missed any. And I guess Brian, would you agree with that? That the a lawyer should be able to charge for. I think it's reasonable, especially given the fact that we occasionally see on our bills for defense counsel that we hire charges for research performed. I think it would seem
Yeah.
reasonable to do this the same way with this kind of technology.
Well, now that you bring that up, Matt, in the old days, I used to see Westlaw sometimes or Lexus charges. I have not seen that as much in the. I don't know if lawyers aren't using that as much or just not billing that separate. Um, because I don't see. Yeah, I think you can charge because it's your time, and that's part of your time is being used with to utilize that tool and helping the client. It probably is a way. Boy, when Westlaw and or Next or Lexus it started out, it was fairly expensive. In fact, lawyers would actually have to get approval in advance to even use that because it was so expensive at times. So this is just far more reasonable in terms of the breadth of what you get for the cost. So yeah, no, it would. I don't think it's going to have much of an impact on a bill, other than it might make it smaller because you're not having to do additional work. So it's certainly something to be charged to the client. Um,
Yeah,
you know,
no, I agree. Um, one more question to get to.
Matt, you froze up on my screen. I don't know if others are having that. Looks like Matt's been replaced by an AI version of himself.
Hey Brian.
Hi, Stephanie.
Hi, I'll read you the question I think Matt was going to get to. The question is, if lawyers will be expected to use AI tech such as ChatGPT, etc., in writing briefs or providing legal counsel, on what basis are we supposed to ensure that it is getting all the relevant, accurate sources and not missing something, or only providing one side, a bias? Is there work being done in the legal space to require AI for use for legal work to include assurance from the AI provider? Did they cover anything like that at Nabrico?
Hey,
No,
Brian,
do you mean?
can you guys
Oh,
hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
yeah. Now I
Okay.
can.
My apologies. I've been
Been
AI'd, I
replaced by.
guess.
Yeah. Did you?
Uh,
Yeah, did you hear Stephanie's question? Or maybe you were about to address that question.
yeah, I did, and I did want to say something in response. But if you have something, go ahead. Otherwise,
No, go ahead. Yeah.
okay.
Uh,
Um,
yeah.
so and one of the responses that we got out in Nabrico was what's amazing not only about the functionality and the effectiveness of AI is how many people are working on those problems that exist or have been identified with AI. And he threw a number out there. I don't think it's accurate, but we can verify this probably with AI. But he said, for every one problem, there's 100 people working on it, and I believe that's true because I have seen these products in play. And in particular, Spellbook was very, for ease of use, and for what it did to create legal work almost immediately that could be reviewed and verified by the attorney was very, very impressive. And I can only imagine that Protege and co-counsel are the kinds of tools that are going to appreciate the work that lawyers do. So is there work being done? Absolutely every day. There are probably billions of dollars being invested in improving, not only creating new artificial intelligence products, but also improving them. So those are the kinds of if you ask me what you should be using, I would steer you away from something that uses an open-ended source like ChatGPT, but understand what that technology is and how powerful it is and how it's being employed in more traditional tools like or at least through more traditional providers, vendors like Lexus and Thompson. So the short answer to that is I think you're only going to continue to see improvement in the products that are available out there. And I think those are going to be useful to helping you do your job as a lawyer in whatever it is that you're reviewing. There was a second part to that question, and I'm not sure that I can get all of it, but is there work being done in the legal space to require AI use for legal work to include assurance from the AI provider of transparency of the model and data quality sources? So the short answer to that is yeah. And you'll see that in the form of a lot of disclaimers that come your way whenever you use ChatGPT. And what it does not do is it does not remove your responsibility in representing a client to exercise independent professional judgment and render candid advice. You can't expect, you can certainly help, you can use the generative AI to come up with the language, but it has to be consistent with what you have devised as a lawyer as your professional judgment and your candid advice. If those two things are married, if they mesh, then I think you're using it correctly. If you replace your independent judgment with something that might sound better by way of a generative AI product, then I think you need to ask yourself why you changed your mind. And then again, don't shirk your duty of independent judgment in an advisor to your client, which means that you've got to explore why AI came up with a different answer than you. So I hope that answered the question, or at least started to. A lot more discussion to be had. And I see that it's probably that same person that said, remember, this is how reliably technology, including AI, works. When I immediately disappeared with no explanation. That was a black hole. So that is the explanation. And it just sort of removed me from the presentation. So I apologize. But you're exactly
Yeah.
right.
And Matt, to add to what you said is that the attorney-client relationship is with you and the client, and it's the same. You can't AI let me down. Yes, it did. Maybe you shouldn't use it, but you're not getting out of your duty, or maybe you need to be more careful. Those kind of things. But unfortunately, it doesn't, and it may be frustrating. But the attorney-client relationship is you and the client. That's who will get blamed if something goes wrong. And that hasn't changed whether you're relying on Lexus, AI, an associate, a co-counsel. And that's kind of circling back to my point at the beginning is the lawyer, buck stops on the lawyer's desk, and frustrated as heck because I thought I was using a reliable source is not a defense to the legal malpractice error, if there is one, with the client.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. We could probably answer questions and talk about this for hours, not an hour, but we are coming up on time. And I did want to just take a minute and let you know that there is a ton of information out there in the form of commentary and form of articles. In fact, I just wrote an article for Wisconsin Lawyer that'll be in next month's issue on a lot of these topics and even more AI products that are out there, including smart contracts, which to me sound really amazing. For those of you who are versed in cryptocurrency, the smart contracts use that same sort of blockchain technology where if then, if then, if then, and they're incorporating those things into supply line contracts so that if X number of nuts and bolts are delivered to Home Depot, then vendor gets paid, and they're all sort of preconceived provisions of a contract that are triggered by certain number of events happening, and that they're being used in delivery of life-saving medicine. I mentioned Home Depot and other sort of retailer supplier relationships, even real estate. They're all things to be aware And I think the end goal, again, is to make the practice of law more efficient, more beneficial to both lawyer and client. And so raising awareness about the things that are out there is very, very important, and needs to be at least in the conversation, in the mix of what your practice is. So look out for that. It's not like I'm the only one writing about it. Sarah Peterson also wrote about a lot of the ethical implications that are in your outline last month. Or I guess this month. So there is more information to glean from those who are trying to stay ahead of the curve, or at least on the curve on this one. So look out for those things. With that, I think we will go ahead and end the program. I want to thank you again. As a reminder, these are programs that we offer free to our policyholders. And we try to offer at least 4 of these free CLE Fridays, convenient over the lunch hour and virtual. And we will have in December, we will also have a 3-hour program similar to the one that we did at the end of August. If you're interested in that, stay tuned. We will get the word out as soon as we have the topics and the speakers lined up. But again, thank you for being a WILMIC policyholder. We very much appreciate your time, and have a great weekend. Take care.
Thanks, everyone.